Hey everybody, it's Roachel Teaa here with Go Here Smoke This. It has been a minute, hasn't it? How's everybody been? Slizwhack is down for the count. He has the strep, and Slizwhack got the strep. He didn't even get COVID. I mean, there's nothing to, that's not like a thing, but it's ironic, I think. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated, out of the groove. Let's see here. So, want to hear something fantastically awful? So we ordered KFC for dinner tonight, and I put in my order on the app. Everything was ready to go. It took my husband like 45 minutes to get the order, and when he gets home, what is the one thing that you go to KFC for? What is the thing that you're like, I think about KFC, I think about this. So for me, it's extra crispy chicken, it's biscuits, and it's gravy. And of course, the gravy with the mashed potatoes. And you know what they forgot on our order is biscuits, gravy, and we got original recipe instead of extra crispy. So I don't know if y'all have eaten KFC mashed potatoes without gravy, but it is literally the worst. My mouth is so dry. I just had to laugh. And I mean, who is there really to complain to, because everywhere is short-staffed right now. So I'm sure that they were doing the best with what they got. Maybe they're training new people. My husband said that the line was out the door. I can't really get too upset with them because I know what the situation is, but that's just brutal. KFC mashed potatoes without gravy is nonsense. Like, what is the point? So anyways, we are chit-chatting about edibles today. And this is just kind of a basic overview. Interestingly enough, I have just had my first edibles experience not too long ago. Actually, I would say like last 2 weeks would be my first experience. So quite fresh. I have been terrified of trying edibles because my metabolism is all kinds of crazy. I didn't know what to expect, and I was really unsure. I didn't want to go get dispensary grade gummies. I don't know. I didn't know enough about edibles. I was just really unsure about getting into it. So this is a new forefront for me. So I'm going to talk to you about the tips that were given to me, and I think like a 101 of trying edibles. So I would say like number one is to make sure that when you're going to be partaking is that you should be in a very comfortable environment for you with people that you trust. And that's not to say like if you're experienced with THC that you couldn't, have an edible and be out and about. I mean, you do you. But for me, being unsure and being in that kind of mindset before having my edibles made the experience a lot better when I could just kind of relax and like go through the motions and not have to worry about where I was, what I was doing, if I had things that I had to do. And that kind of brings me into my next point is beyond just a comfortable space, you need to give yourself like a buffer. I would say just give yourself time before, during, after, make sure that you have like a long window. And that was the advice that was given to me, is to have like a, what do you call that? Like a 6-hour window, because I don't know, like for a starter, you should kind of like see how things are going to progress. So for me, my concern and what kept me away from edibles to begin with was I was concerned about specifically when it would metabolize, because my concern was, especially when I was working, is okay, so I'm going to have this thing. I know my metabolism sucks. And then what? I'm going to like wake up tomorrow and then get to work. And then all of a sudden it's going to hit and I'm going to trip while I'm at work. Like, give yourself the weekend. Give yourself time to experiment, especially if you end up enjoying it, which is personally my experience. I have quite enjoyed what I have been able to like what I have been able to gauge as my response to edibles. And that's because I've had time to kind of go through the motions, kind of see how it was going to affect me, what the effect was. And honestly, I got to give a shout out to Slizwhack and Auntie Kel because they're the ones who sent me their gummies. And actually, I did link the recipe for their gummies in the description. So you guys can go check out that video and see how they do. I was really surprised by the flavor of the gummies. I'm not averse to like super herby flavors. So a lot of stuff like CBD tinctures and like stuff that's homemade doesn't really bother me, even if it is super herbaceous or super herby or, you know, super plant tasting. So that was really interesting, is that the gummies that they sent for me to check out was very, like, it was a very mild flavor and it wasn't like overly sweet. It was really enjoyable. Infomercial for homemade gummies. I like trying things out that I know other people have tried, especially when it's my first time. I think that that's a lot of the like cannabis industry, is trusting people's opinions, especially people that you trust. And so it was comforting for me to have friends reach out and say, hey, you know, here's our stuff. Yeah, tolerance levels is a big thing, and I'm a pretty regular cannabis user. I wouldn't say like I'm any kind of like pro, or I haven't been doing it for, you know, my whole life or whatever. I'm still fairly new to the industry, but I was able to take that advice and turn it into a really positive experience. And so, you know, that's why I want to share that with you, because I am new. And I know there's a lot of people out there who were raised like I was, where it was like, no, you know, weed's bad. The devil's lettuce, reefer madness. I know it's not just me. The DARE program has done wonders for our country. At least they made cool shirts, right? So yeah, give yourself time, and give yourself like really not just time in general, but give yourself like that breathing room, you know, where you don't have things to do, you don't have places to go. You can kind of sit down and understand what's happening, kind of gauge time frames, you know, see what kind of dose you had and what kind of experience you're getting without really distractions. So I think that that's one, is give yourself time before, during, after. Give yourself enough time to have time to experiment and get to know what's going on. And then, of course, be comfortable in your space. Another tip that was given to me, because I I don't know if you guys are like this, but when I have something new coming up, I like to ask a lot of questions, like to know what I'm getting into. It's kind of my anxiety. It's half of the reason why I medicate. So my question was, you know, of course, dosage. You know, how much are the gummies? And that is something that you can determine, especially even when you're making your own. I wouldn't say like brand new, because I think a lot of people have in some form or another kind of been around it, you know, in one way or another, you know, parties, whatever. I think a lot of people have like a base like understanding of cannabis. But I think that there are a lot of people, especially with legalization coming around, and especially with the movement to get away from all of the crazy pharmaceuticals, you know, all of the issues that are out and all of the new research that's coming out on cannabis. I think a lot of people are looking at it as a genuine medication. And so I think there are a lot of people who are just getting into it and not really sure, you know, where to go. Like for me, still, I have not done dabs, and dabs is a scary, that's my next frontier to overcome, is trying out dabs. I'm just not that, I don't know. It seems like it's hardcore. Edibles also seem like it was something hardcore. But I have to say, like, my opinion has completely turned around. If anything, I think that right now, based on my experience, I'm actually leaning more towards edibles. I typically just smoke out of a pipe, a bong, whatever. I'm not really a joint fan. I don't like the flavor. That's one thing that I don't like. And it's a very specific, I don't know if it's the papers. I don't know if it's just like a very like a chemical taste to it. Like I like getting pre-rolls from dispensaries because I like to try new things. And I feel like grabbing a joint or a pre-roll is really easy. It's a really easy way to try a new strain without investing too much into it, because pre-rolls are usually pretty inexpensive. So, yep. So for dosing, start out small and make sure that you give it time. So starting out small is, let's see here. Starting out small is looking at the size of the gummy, and then, starting out with a quarter, with a half, with a third, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever dose you're looking to start out at. For me, as a frequent cannabis user, I felt comfortable doing a half of a small gummy. I don't remember the grams of what was given to me. I didn't write it down, but I started with a half. So I was like, okay, I can start with a half. I can go lower, I can go higher, but that's a pretty good way to, divide something. And so for me personally, the half took about 3 hours to kick in before I started noticing like that initial like numbing, tingling. And then after that, I got like a really good high. I would say probably about 5 hours into my first experience. So about 5 hours. And then that lasted until I went to bed and I didn't have any side effects. One interesting thing about edibles. Awesome. Thanks, Ted. One thing that's interesting about edibles is that you can build on your high. I think that with traditional methods, like with smoking, you can reach that peak. And I think with edibles, it's something that you can absolutely like, I wouldn't necessarily say get higher, but you can definitely build on it and make yourself have like an extended high. And it's one of those things where actually I asked about that. What does an overdose on edibles look like? An overdose on edibles looks like going to sleep because you're super high and then waking up the next day and you feel okay at first, and then you keep going and you start to get high again. One of my fears. So definitely pay attention to your dosage, pay attention to how you're feeling, and keep notes. Like I was kind of watching the clock. I wanted to kind of see, because I'm already a cannabis user, I could kind of gauge what my response actually was. So I would say the next tip that I have, or that I would recommend, is that if you have a bad experience with the gummy that you had, so if you have edibles that you didn't really enjoy your experience, I would say experiment, because just because the gummies that you got, or maybe the gummies that you made, were not the best experience for you, there's a lot of different recipes. There's a lot of different methods for ingredients. So you have to look at not just what the gummy experience was or what that initial edibles experience was. You have to look at what ingredients go into it. What not just ingredients, but like what methods go into it. Ed's one of our longtime viewers, and he is a genius with all of the edibles that he makes. I have gotten a lot of interesting ideas from specifically Ted. I think that a lot of the time when you think about edibles, most of the time it is baked goods, it's sweets. And I think that that's because a lot of the vessels for getting cannabis into your edibles come from like canna butter. And when you think of canna butter, you think of baking. But Ted's actually one of the first people that was really interesting and was talking about like full mills. And that is absolutely, I think, a next level, if we get our recreational, if we get our if we get a recreational, if we get our legalization, if we get the federal ban lifted for cannabis, I think that absolutely you can start seeing cafes with like pastries and cafes with full meals that you can sit down and enjoy cannabis with. One of the topics that I was talking about a long time ago was a lady who is pairing a lot of herbs with cannabis for a different experience, because herbs also have terpenes. So if you have the terpenes in cannabis that have a complement from the herb, and then you're smoking both, I think that's going to be interesting. It's almost like, I would say, wine pairing, but it's not wine pairing. It's an experience that I guess they're both experiences, but you know what I mean. So yeah, if you have a bad experience with the first edible that you try again, because there's going to be something out there that works for you, I'm sure. Oh, marinated meat. See, I love that. I love different ways to marinate meat. And I feel like does your cannabis oil have a lot of flavor, Ted? Because there is that like cannabis flavor, and I think a lot of people don't like that. But then when you think about meat, you think about adding on seasonings, like you're looking at sage, you're looking at rosemary, and all those stuff have like a really like potent flavor. And that's what you're looking for when you want to do meat. You want to do butter, you want to do oils, you want to have the marinade with flavor. So you did sangria and cannabis oil. Did you use any other seasonings, like any herbs that you did with it? Like right there, you could have meat. Maybe gummies aren't your thing. Yeah. If you have a bad experience with an edible, you have to look at all of the pieces that go into making an edible. Edibles are not just one fits all, just like most cannabis experiences, just like most cannabis ways of consuming it. I would say try an experiment and see. Like I said, I've been super impressed with how my edible experience has gone. Honestly, I think that it's kind of taking over as an alternative to smoking just because of convenience. If I'm starting to get a really bad migraine, I can feel it coming on. If I'm starting to get like leg aches and all the other pains and getting stressed out at the end of the day, I know that I can pop an edible, and I know that when I'm ready to relax, it's going to be there for me. So that's awesome. Very, very, very convenient. On the flip side of that, smoking is obviously a lot more immediate. So just depends on what you're looking for the day. And going along with that, I would say that my number 5 tip, tricks, edibles 101 is always experiment. And that's with your dose. That's with the kind of edible that you're using. That's with, where you're getting your edibles from. There's going to be a method for you that works out. Now is Jack Harer. So yeah, that's all I got. I'm still bummed about my KFC. KFC without biscuits and without gravy is bumming me out. KFC gravy with cannabis. Biscuits with can of butter. I don't know about that. That's a bit much. So yeah, my first edible experience went super awesome. I am super excited and happy to have friends who can share their wisdom and knowledge with me. I think that that's maybe another like unspoken thing is if you're going to try something new, talk to somebody that you respect and somebody whose opinion you trust, especially if you're not really sure where to start. And, I don't know. I think now is the age where if you are or have been curious about cannabis, it's a really great time to jump in and see what you want to try, just because you can go to like a store setting. You can go to, people who are knowledgeable. There is an actual industry now, depending on, obviously like check out dispensaries, check out your local dispensaries.